Let's talk supply chain. So, welcome to the show, Evin.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
And I'm excited to have you here. I mean, you're a leader in the forklift power industry, which is really cool. And it's not a sector that we talk about that much, if at all. And especially as a woman, you're really making some waves. So I'm excited to find out more. Plus, I'm going to ask you a little bit about this later because I hear you're a bit of a baseball fan. And so we have a lot to talk about. We have a lot in common. So let's start with you taking us on your journey. I mean, you have a degree in communication. So how did you end up in supply chain?
Well, I really didn't even know what a forklift was. A recruiter called me and I went and interviewed for a material handling company. And I walked in, and the position that I was interviewing for was a fleet management program that helped customers to track their costs when they had multiple locations across the country. So again, didn't know what a forklift was, but that just made sense that if you had multiple locations, you would want some sort of device or software that you could track, your expenses. So I ended up taking that job and falling in love with the industry. We always joke, it's like, don't ever burn any bridges in this industry, because once you're in it, you're hooked. And it's a really fun. I love working with all different types of people, whether it's blue collar, white collar, and I get to do it all here.
Yeah, it's funny that you say this. I saw this video the other day and it was this stick with like a garbage can lid on it, but there was a hole in the dirt and like a chicken walked up to it and it stepped on the one side and it tilted and the chicken went in, and it was kind of like, that's how you end up in supply chain. And
Yeah.
you stay there because it's this like giant hole of like awesomeness that nobody ever wants to leave.
It is great industry. I love it.
So funny. Now, you co-founded Texas Motive Solutions in 2018. What was
Mhm.
behind that decision? What made you want to start your own business? And maybe do you have any advice for budding entrepreneurs? Because I'll tell you, it's not easy, right?
Yeah, I think that would be my biggest advice. Is I think that everyone thinks it's all cush to own your own company. And I was working for another power company for about 5 years, and they were getting out of the division altogether for motive power. So they were focusing on their core, competencies. And so that was really where we had a chance to step in. And I think I just kind of told my husband, I think that we could do this and we should try. And I think to my surprise, he said, let's do it. And then I was like, oh gosh, we're all in now. But I went from a sales job where I would work through the day. And yes, you're always going to have customers that call you after hours, and it was no big deal, but you can be really flexible with when you're in sales. So I think that was the biggest, shock for me. I had a 3-year-old and an 8-month-old. And so we started this business, and it was a lot. There was never any stopping. I think we worked, 23 hours a day, had an hour in there to sleep, but it was
Wow.
very stressful. After a day of going out and trying to grow the business, then there was, AR, AP, all the different jobs that I had never done that I just had to adapt to learn.
Yeah, all the things. It's kind of one of those conversations that you go into and you're like, I'm not entirely sure which answer I want, but I'm gonna ask it anyways. And then when he's like, let's do it, you're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have asked that
Yeah.
question, right?
I
Uh,
think I think a few weeks in, I had a panic attack, and I was like, what are we doing? Like, what did I get us into? We had a great life before this, relaxing.
scheduled vacations,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing that people don't realize when you have a small business. It's like you don't go on a vacation without having to worry about payroll, with having to make sure that the bills are paid so that electricity stays on. There's all these things that you don't have a bunch of people doing it when you like, if you're in a corporate job. It's a small business. It's all you.
Yep, yep. So do you have any advice for budding entrepreneurs then? I mean,
I would say the reason we were so successful is because we had an amazing team. So I would never go into anything without having the best people surrounding me, and that was what was really cool. The company that I worked for, I had worked with a lot of the people that came with us on our team whenever we
oh,
started the business. So I think whenever you're working in any job, you're like, that person's awesome. Like I would totally pick them, and to be on my team, and that's really what we got to do. We got to pick all of the best people that we wanted to come with us. And everyone was excited, because I think coming from a corporate world to a small business, everyone, gets that feeling that they are making a huge difference
Yeah,
for
I
the
love that.
company.
Now, you mentioned that you founded the business with your husband. What was that experience like? I mean, my husband sometimes travels with me because I'm
Mhm.
away a lot. We spend a
Yeah.
lot of time apart, but I do come from working in a family business where, like, I'm seeing my
Mhm.
parents every day, my brother every day, you know? So, how
Yeah.
did you manage to achieve sort of that work-life balance when you're living and working so closely together?
Well, I think it's definitely different going from a marriage partner to a business partner. And so, the hardest part for us in the beginning is we wanted to still continue to have that personal life and not bring work into, every date we went on. But it's hard whenever you're starting up. I mean, that's all you're trying. Every minute you can talk business, you do. And my husband already had a really successful law practice that he still has today. So he was already a boss. He already knew how to run a business. So I think us trying to, find that dynamic that worked for us where it wasn't just one of us bossing the other around and really being a team and working together. I think that we had to find that. And it took, a few months. And again, I think it was a few weeks in whenever, we're partnering up on this. And I'm like, what did we do? Like we had it so easy before this. Why? But I made a mistake, but no, it got better. And I think that really he was, my husband is my biggest cheerleader, my biggest supporter, but he will also push me more than anyone else to be better and to do things. And there were a lot of times that, I was unsure and he was always there to like, no, you got this. Like it's only money, I'm losing our whole savings. It's only money. But obviously he didn't want us to lose money, but
Yeah.
he never made me feel like, if I failed, it was failing our family. So I think that was huge. And you were talking about traveling with your husband. We actually always tried to travel with each other as much as possible. And we did that even before the business, just being in a male dominated industry. My husband, his other business is actually family law. So he sees a lot of divorces as
Oh,
well, things that happen whenever you go on these corporate trips and things. So for us, like it was just, we found like we are better as a team, and it doesn't ever put me in a situation being a woman in a male dominated
yeah.
industry.
Yeah. Well, and you found your groove. And so, like, when you talk about team, but you also talk about, obviously you've co-founded with your husband, it's really all about communication and making
Mhm.
sure that you find the groove that's going to work for both of you. And it doesn't happen overnight, right?
Yeah.
And there are some things that you might find out a little bit down the road that may or may not work. Or as you're changing and he's changing, you may have to adapt again. But I think as entrepreneurs, we're so used to adapting, right? Because like
Yeah.
everything is new and changing. And if it's not new, you have to find a different way to do it. And so I appreciate you for sharing that because it's not easy working with family. And, sometimes the only time that you get together to talk about something that happened in the business that
Yeah.
needs to be talked about in that moment is at the dinner table and you just can't help it, right? So,
Yes.
so Texas Motive Solutions was acquired by Concentric at the end of 2022. Talk to us
Mhm.
about how that acquisition came about. You stayed on with Concentric in a leadership role. So, what
Mhm.
has your experience been over the last maybe 18 months navigating the acquisition and sort of finding your place as part of that workforce?
Well, whenever we started talking to Concentric, they actually approached us and we weren't even thinking about selling our company or doing anything. I mean, we were growing, we had double digit growth year over year. I mean, tremendous growth. So we were kind of at the point where how are we going to continue this growth and how are we going to make sure our customer experience is still the best
Right.
whenever we're getting so big, I think when you have a smaller company, you can make sure that they feel that boutique service. And I wanted to make sure that that never went away, even as, we were a large company. So Concentric, their leadership team reached out to us and again, wasn't no plans to do so. And really the more I talked to them, I learned more about the company, and Concentric's made up of a bunch of people like me. So it's a bunch of
Nice.
entrepreneurs, yeah, entrepreneurs that have just come together. And really, it didn't feel like I was, having to sell our company. It was, we're merging in with these other people and we're going to have people that we can, share best practices with. They have their strengths, we had our strengths, and we're just bringing them all together and making them, making it better for our customers. So it made it easy in that sense. That's when I, talking to them and just really getting to know the leadership team and learning their characters and what great people they were, that solidified our decision that it was the right one and the right team that I wanted to join. So
Yeah, that makes it so much easier, right? When you know you're kind of in the right place at the right time with the right people.
yeah.
So I
And
love
I
to hear
think
that story because acquisitions can be scary, right?
yeah, for sure. I think that that was the biggest fear. Oh gosh, we're going to merge with this company and we're going to lose our sense of identity. Everything that we've worked so hard for to build with this business, we're not, it's going to go away and we're just going to have to become them once we merge. And, in small businesses, it's not just about you. You have this family of your team members and truly is a family when it's a small business. So
Mhm.
those were my biggest concerns. But really, since merging, it's been amazing. They let me be who I want to be,
Nice.
and just kind of sharpen me, like make me better. And I have all these great people that I get to bounce ideas off, which is nice because whenever, you own your own business, it's like everyone's coming to you and you kind of want somebody to ask questions to. So
Yep.
it's fun to have these people that I get to bounce ideas off of.
Awesome. Now you are regional vice president now. And I feel like we put so much weight behind titles, right?
Yeah.
I think about, you mentioned identity. And I think
Yeah.
about when we move out of one title, maybe into another, or maybe it's almost like a demotion
Yeah.
and we put so much weight in the titles. But I think it's interesting, right? Because we look at a title like regional vice president, but do we really know what goes into that, and what does that mean, and what does that day sort of look like? If we were to be a regional vice president, what would that look like to us, and is that the life that we want? So can you
Yeah.
describe sort of a day in your life of what that looks like?
Well, I don't think my job has really changed that much, except now I don't have to do AR or AP. Yay. Thank you. Thank you.
Can you
Uh,
help me with that?
but it's funny you talk about titles, and titles were never really, it never mattered to me. I didn't care about a big title. And on my business cards, even as the owner of the company, I never had a title on my card because I said I can't, first off, I can't go in and make a cold call with one of my team members, and if they see that it's president or CEO of the company, they're like, this is some mom and pop.
Right.
So I just kept that part blank. And I really, yes, I feel like the regional vice president is actually the biggest title I've ever had because I never use them, on a business card. But I think that I still have that mindset of the entrepreneur, and whether it's sweeping the floors or going on a meeting, supporting my team, I don't think that it's changed. I think that you have to be able to jump in and do any job. But of course, there's, making sure that we're hitting our targets. But I feel like the majority of my job is coaching and strategizing on, how we can go out and grow our business. So
Yeah. So what does that day look like for you? Like, are you constantly in meetings? Are you focusing some of your time on strategy and then some of your time on, where we are as far as targets? What does give us a little bit of a glimpse?
yeah, and I think that's what's cool too is whenever we moved and merged with Concentric, I felt like there were a lot more, corporate meetings and that I
Yeah.
had on. But I think our leadership team knows where my strengths are, and it's not necessarily, just looking at numbers all day, every day. So I have great support people that can help me with that stuff as well and kind of give me I want to know the Cliff Notes version. What do we need to, get to?
Yeah.
And then I feel like I'm better at going out and and getting that business and helping our team and
Awesome.
really going on meetings with them, just trying to find ways to improve processes and, our sales.
Well, and the innovation comes from some of those conversations, right? You don't
Mhm.
know what you don't know, and you can't really sort of figure that out or understand the innovation or what clients are looking for unless you're out there with your team. It's one of my favorite parts too. I mean, I get to meet with a lot of people as well. And when you were talking about sweeping floors, so I was director of sales and marketing, and then I had no job. And then I had a part-time job as a receptionist sweeping floors. And I feel like entrepreneurs, the title really doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
You're just going to pitch in and do what you need to do and do what you need to do to get to where you want to be as an entrepreneur as well. And
Yeah.
so that's one of the things that I want to point out too is when it comes to entrepreneurship, be willing to do the thing and forget
Yeah.
about the titles because when you start a
Yeah.
business, you have to wear all the hats
Oh
and
yeah.
nobody cares.
Yeah. Don't
So
think just because you own your own business, you don't have to do it. It's the exact opposite. You're gonna have to
it
do it
takes
all.
time to build the team.
Yeah.
So you work in the forklift power industry, which I think is fairly niche, right? So for those of us that don't know much about it, can you just give us a bit of an overview of the industry? Like what are some of the key trends that are impacting you or maybe your clients right now? I'm guessing maybe sustainability might be one of those.
Yeah, sustainability is probably the number one word that we hear right now whenever we're visiting with different companies. But basically, the forklift industry, everything that you're touching, any food that goes in your mouth, it's, getting those things is all going to be impacted by the forklift industry and making sure that those pieces of equipment are powered. And so that's where we come in. And then our company actually takes it a step further. We're looking at everything from, backup critical power, making sure that buildings are still powered. I think that the biggest, COVID wasn't really anything different for us in supply chain because there were a lot of businesses that completely shut down. But whenever Texas had the ice storm a few years back,
Mm-hmm.
we lost power. And that was the biggest thing is that, and that was what was scary to me. It's like we couldn't move because their buildings lost power. You weren't able to charge your forklifts. The
Right.
forklifts weren't able to move. Cars weren't able to get through, So I think that's really where we're moving because not only, if, losing power, but we also have brownouts in Texas. We just had a tornado hit the other day in Houston. And still to this, it's been about almost a week and people are still without power. So
Wow.
I think that it's really important that we're finding ways to, make sure that companies are still powered even during these situations. And
Mhm.
so as far as sustainability, there's a ton of power being pulled from the grid, but there's not a lot of faster than we're able to actually put it back in. So those are all things that we have to look at. And when you can, tell companies that we can help shave off, peak power for them and help reduce their costs, help reduce their energy consumption. These are all really big things that our customers are thinking about right now.
Absolutely. Now, one of the things that you mentioned is that you love going out with your team. You love the sales aspect of it. And from what I have been able to research, it sounds like you've built one of the most dynamic and sales and service teams in the forklift power industry, which is like incredible, right? So, how has
Yeah.
the face of sales changed over the years? How have you adapted those strategies and techniques, especially in the face of tough times? Do you have any tips, right? Because a lot of people are kind of in this
Yeah.
weird spot right now. And sales is just a little bit more difficult at the moment.
Yeah. I think sales in the past, well, at least the stereotype was you have to be on the golf course, you need to be at the bar, it's constant entertaining. And I think for us, where we were always different, and it was also me being a female, I didn't want to just go out to happy hours every night. So we had to be able to find a way to bring our customers value. And I think that that's where our team and what we've trained people to do, we have to go in and find their problems and find a way to,
Hmm.
prevent them from happening or take them away altogether. And I think that's what we've been very successful in doing. And I think that we pick great people and we train them. And I will say what we've always done different than everyone else is we don't typically pull people from our industry. We like to pull people from
Okay.
different industries and train them our way versus, the old school way, I guess.
That's amazing because I've spoken to a lot of people about, where do we find specific people for specific roles? And yes, we want to find them in supply chain, but also we want to find different people who have been in different
Mhm.
industries, who have different perspectives, the way that they think about things, the way that they look at things, because that's going
Mhm.
to help us innovate, help us change
Yeah.
the conversation. Maybe they're seeing things that we've never even seen before. And how do we do that if we don't bring different people to the table? So I love to hear that,
Exactly.
that's kind of your ethos. Now, you've also mentioned during this discussion that the forklift power industry has historically lacked women, right? It's very male dominated. I can't say that that is surprising because there are quite a few areas of supply chain that still, lack that balance. So what has your experience been as a woman sort of rising through the ranks, founding your own business, being part of that acquisition and everything that has gone into your journey?
Yeah. Well, I'm proud to say that our team is pretty much made up equally of men and women, which is different than a lot of people in our industry. But really, we're not looking for, one gender or
Hmm.
we're looking for awesome people that we can bring on and train and that are willing to learn. And willing to think differently and outside of the box. So I think that's probably what's, made us the most successful.
But what about you on your journey? Being in those
Um,
rooms is like, I don't know what the ratio is in that part of
oh
the
yeah,
industry, but I know, like, for myself in the past, I've gone to a logistics conference and been one of three women out of five or 600 people, you
yeah.
know?
Well, I'll say from my experience, I don't know if this is yours, but I feel like there's times I walk in and they just think I might not know as much just because I'm a woman in
Yes.
this industry versus a man. And then talking about partnering with my husband, we joke about it now, but in the beginning, it would frustrate me so much because I would tell someone something and he would tell them the same thing. And it was like when it came out of his mouth, he was like a god, there. Oh, that is such a, novel idea. And then I'm like, I literally just told them that exact same thing and they did not think that. But I think that there are certain times where, as a partnership, I said, hey, I think this is going to come better from coming from you versus
Mm-hmm.
me. And sometimes he would say the same thing. I think it's going to come better from you. But there's definitely challenges. I think that it's changing because I think that people are seeing value in great people, whether you're a male or female. But there's definitely some challenges and still some chauvinistic tendencies, I would say.
So I still experience it. So I'll get on a podcast and be like, "Hey, how are you?" And they don't know me,
Yeah.
which is fine. But we start talking, and I start throwing in context around logistics and the things that I know and whatever, and you can see it in their eyes, and they're like, "Oh, oh, okay." And then we
Yeah.
continue the conversation. It's really funny.
Yeah.
I catch
I,
them
I
out
tell
every
all
time.
I tell all of my female reps, I'm like, hey, you may be able to get into a place, but you better know your stuff because
Yes.
they're gonna challenge you. And it is funny. We do have certain clients that try to challenge us more but there's still challenges. One of my favorite customers, whenever I started, and I joke with him now about it, but he asked me, "So did your husband just buy you a hobby?"
Oh my goodness, no.
It's like, no, he did not just buy me a hobby, but yeah,
Wow. Okay. So for
I
any
give
of
him a
the
hard time
men,
for it now, and
no, but for any of the men listening to this, don't ask that question. Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Now we're talking about uplifting other women in the industry, right? Because you're one of the leaders in that industry now. So how are you helping to lift up other women in the industry? How can we all sort of help move that needle?
I think that just, by training, making sure you know your stuff, you only get one shot. You get one first impression. So if you ruin that, then, or if you go in there and you tell them something that isn't true or you don't know your product, then, you aren't going to get that second chance. So you got to make sure that you know what you're talking about. Don't be afraid to ask questions. And I always joke, I said, I'm a woman. I'm not afraid to ask for directions. That's the great thing. But if I don't know something, I'll say, I'm not positive on that. I'll get back to you. But again, you can't get a second chance. And so if they catch you not knowing your stuff, then, that's a bigger thing than saying I need help.
Yeah. Well, and I think you uplift the women on your team as well, right? You probably train them, give them everything that they need to be able to succeed, but you're also right by them when you're going to do sales, right? So if they
Mhm.
falter, you probably sort of pick them up and lift them up and maybe turn it into maybe even like an educational moment, right?
Yeah, we definitely I mean we're there for every minute of the way until they feel comfortable. So kind of like mama bird until you're ready to fly. I got your back. So
I love that. I love that. So, over the course of your career so far, what would you say are the biggest lessons that you've learned?
don't be afraid to ask questions.
Hmm.
There's no stupid question. There's only, not very intelligent people who are afraid to ask questions, I would say. And just always be willing to change. Don't think that, there's only one way to do it because if you're afraid of change, you're going to get left behind. So,
Hmm. That's so
um,
true.
I think those would be probably my two biggest pieces of
I
advice.
go I go back to what you said about asking for directions. So I come from an era of when I did sales, I had to read a map book. Like there was no like Waze or Google Maps or anything
Oh
like that.
yeah.
I had to find my way through a map book. And it's funny because if I have a map book, I don't need to ask for directions most of the time. I'm not afraid to do it, but I won't. And
Yeah.
I was in Dallas one time with my husband and they gave gave us this like really just not very good map, but I navigated all throughout Dallas without having to ask for directions on this
That's
very
impressive.
minimal. I know. I was so
That's
impressed with myself.
Yeah. If you take me out of DFW, I don't know north, south, east, or west. I'm like, hi. But I know DFW very well.
That's awesome. So when I did the research, I think I saw in your LinkedIn profile that you were an LSU, so that's Louisiana State University back girl. Are you
Yes.
into baseball? Because everyone knows I'm a bit of a baseball fan and I still play right now.
Yes, I'm a huge baseball, football, just sports fan. I love the competitive nature. I really love college sports.
Okay.
Probably more before they started the NIL, but because now it kind of takes some of the passion out of it. But I love watching, my Tigers. So I'm a huge fan. I actually my third child. It was the year Joe Burrow went to the national championship and won, but I was due to have her the week after the championship, and I asked my OB. I was like, "Hey, you think we could make this happen?" She's like, "No, we're not. You do not need to go to that." So,
That's so
but
funny. So Tigers, who are the Tigers?
that's the LSU Tigers. So
Oh, the LSU Tigers.
yeah.
Okay. I mean, for a Canadian, I had to ask because I don't really know. Do you have any other favorite teams?
After college, I loved the Cowboys, but they kind of disappoint quite often. So I like to cheer for just my favorite college players. So I want Joe Burrow to win a championship. I love him. But I just cheer for people that I think are good people. I loved the Mannings, even though we had to compete against them at LSU, but we
So
won in college. So I can cheer for them now, but so they're no longer here. So I feel like it's like the next generations and the next leaders who I like to cheer for.
that's awesome. So finally, then, what does the future hold for you? What does that look like?
I don't know. I think that's the most exciting thing about coming to Concentric is we have so many new technologies where I was, starting to get focused in on certain products and certain solutions. It's like every day there's something new and something that I learned. So I'm going to continue doing this. I want to continue to coach people and work with people. I love helping. I love seeing them grow and mentoring. And that's probably my favorite thing. I love being a cheerleader. I was a cheerleader. So I think that's where I love sports and why I like doing it professionally, in my career cheering on our team. But I have so many different opportunities that I can do within the company. It's really sky's the limit. And we just merged or were bought out by MHI. So, I mean, there's all these different technologies that are going to be coming to the United States, and we're going to be right in the middle of it. So it's exciting.
Awesome. That sounds so exciting. I mean, it's been such a pleasure getting to know you and sharing your journey with our listeners. I love to hear about strong women building success for themselves, especially in male dominated spaces. And you're such a great example of what the next generation of women can achieve. So, did you have a guess at today's big question? Well, at the top of the show, I asked you how many people are employed in the forklift manufacturing industry in the US. Well, the count came in at nearly 29,000 employees in 2024, and the market is only set to grow. So thank you so much, Evin, for joining me. I can't believe we have to bring the conversation to a close. I feel like we could talk for a long time.
Thank you, Sarah.